Guys, good morning and welcome to the podcast. My name is Andy. I'm the clinical lead at ReadyCare, so I oversee all of the uh, research and protocol and dietary interventions and so on. My area, I suppose, of expertise is metabolic health, so type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, cholesterol, which is known as dyslipidemia, unfavorable levels of cholesterol, weight loss, and so on. But in today's session, we're going to be talking about something a little bit more practical, and that is what type of yogurts to choose when you're looking to lose weight. Do we go for something that looks like this? It's called Greek yogurt. It says 10% fat, looks healthy. Um, Maybe it's not. It's got a lot of fat in it. We'll break it down in a second. Or do we go for something like this? This is probiotic. It says gut health on it. It's got summer fruits labeling on it. It's Irish. It's organic. Surely that's really good for us. Let's break it down and try and figure out which is better and which is worse for us. Okay, first thing to know, this is absolutely key. Much of the food labeling messaging and the way they position their products, intentionally and sometimes otherwise actually, sometimes they get it wrong, is based around the idea that something with more calories in it causes more weight gain, which is not actually true. I mean, ultimately, if you end up in a caloric surplus, you eat way too many calories, you are going to gain weight. But interestingly, foods that are higher in fat, if they're also high in protein and lower in sugar, they'll teach the body to run on fat as a fuel source, as opposed to something that's high in sugar and low fat, which will teach the body to run on sugar and carbs as a fuel source and cause more production of a hormone called insulin, which leads to new fat storage known as de novo lipogenesis. So, point number one, fat does not make you fat. I know this is really hard to get your head around and you're thinking, but surely if I'm taking in more calories, it's going to cause weight gain. In the context of a whole food, lower carb diet, a decent diet where your blood sugar levels are running pretty low most of the time, you're not eating a lot of sugar and carbs, fat does not make you fat. In fact, it can help you lose weight. So, the first premise to understand is that, as I said, fat doesn't make you fat. Number two, sugar does. I mean, it's not even up for debate anymore. We understand this. It's in line with the CIMO, carbohydrate insulin model of obesity. The main driver of fat storage in humans is refined carbohydrates and sugar. So things like bread, cereal, granola bars, rice, pasta, and also, frozen pizzas, fizzy drinks, ice cream. Sugar basically is the main driver of fat. Now, how sugar drives fat storage in your cells is you eat sugar, and remember, all carbohydrate is metabolized as sugar in the human body, blood glucose, we call it. And if you want to prove that to yourself, just go to a diabetic patient and say to them, would you mind showing me your blood sugar levels after a bowl of porridge, 2 hours after a bowl of porridge, or two bananas, these healthy foods, and then do the same experiment the next morning with a ham and cheese omelette, and you will see blood sugar levels of 9 and 10 in the first example, and blood sugar levels of 5 or 6 in the second example. The reason that's relevant is when your sugars go high, your body produces a hormone called insulin, your pancreas in the beta islet cells. They produce insulin. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. So, key thing number one is to understand that when we're looking to lose weight, we want to focus on sugar and carbohydrate in a yogurt product, not fat. Dietary fat will not make you fat. So believe it or not, and this sounds like a really extreme example, but it's more than clear in the literature when we look at ketogenic diets, which are the most studied diet of all time, actually. So if you look at, for example, somebody who removes porridge and breads and cereals and sugary foods, and they follow like an Atkins type or a low carb or ketogenic type approach, or even paleo or whole food, and they eat much more dietary fat and protein, they will lose weight and lose weight rapidly. The concern initially with an Atkins diet was that that amount of protein might be bad for you. Untrue, unless you've got stage 4 chronic kidney disease, you can eat as much protein as you want. And then that the fat might some way be deleterious for cardiovascular risk, so it might raise your heart disease risk. Not true either. And we know this from our own work, for which we've received a couple of international awards. And also from the work of the likes of Virta Health and many other people who studied low carb, higher fat diets for improving heart health. So both of those things put to bed, let's look at some key things. So I use the example of this yogurt, which looks like 10% fat, which is high fat. It says source of protein, Greek yogurt. So you think, well, that should be okay. Maybe it's got more fat in it. It's got red on the food label here. Let me put this up a little bit closer. The red is for, what is it for? That won't focus, but it's for saturated fats. 8.4 or something like that. So you would think, well, I don't know how good that looks. Well, this one definitely looks good. Okay, let's have a look at the keywords that they use to try and hook people in, because they know what people are looking for. They do all these market research surveys, so they know what you're looking for when you go shopping. 0% fat, high in protein, source of calcium, as if every yogurt isn't a source of calcium, and spoonable, apparently, is a selling point. Summer fruit, kefir, gut health, exclamation or little asterisks. 16 strains of live cultures, made with Irish milk and organic. So you would think that's pretty good. Now, if you look through the lens of what causes weight gain is an increase in your blood sugar levels through activation or secretion of that hormone called insulin. So we look at the Greek yogurt one first. So the thing we're looking for on the label here, if we have our heads on and we understand the mechanisms which drive weight gain, we're looking for low sugar, high fat. The high fat and high protein will keep you full. The low sugar means you won't gain weight from it. So this is much better for you. So if you look at these wonder drugs, sorry, I hate to use the fake and what you call them, quotation marks, but it drives me mad. Ozempic, semaglutide, all those sorts of things. People are raving about them because they make you feel really full and you lose lots of weight. You'll also waste about mostly muscle mass, and you'll damage your metabolism, and God knows what else you'll do. I think something like 5% of people get gut paralysis. There's questions around whether it causes pancreatitis and cancer. Not a risk I personally would like to take, no matter what size I ended up at. But the reason people love those is because they cause an increase of a hormone synthetically, actually, what's called an analog of GLP-1, which stands for glucagon-like peptide agonist. Not important to know what it is, but basically it's a synthetic mimicking of something called a gut incretin. And that's a hormone. It triggers a hormone called GLP-1 that makes you feel full. It also slows down gastric emptying. So, the food is in your body a little bit longer and you feel fuller in terms of the brain hormone. This does the same because it's high protein. A chicken breast does exactly the same. An egg does exactly the same. That's the reason why we can all eat a 12-inch pizza with half a tub of Ben & Jerry's and 2 bars of chocolate and a can of Coke. And feel a bit stuffed, and then an hour and a half later be hungry again. But there is no way in earth that you would eat 22 boiled eggs. Just no way. Impossible to do. You'd be so sick. And they're the same amount of calories. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide agonist. So instead of telling people, actually, guys, if you move away from sugar and carbs and just eat less of the processed stuff and eat boiled eggs and chicken breasts and fatty steak and real food, as human evolution for 2.4 million years we have done, you don't need to inject yourself with something that has long-term side effects and may kill you in the long run. Sounds crazy. There you go. Okay, sorry, bit of a rant about GLP-1. So this is the Greek yogurt. So let's take a look at the breakdown of this. I call it out now rather than showing it to the camera. So amounts per quarter pot, which is 125 grams. So when I say that we want to keep carbs lower, the number is around 6. We want our yogurt to have about 6 grams of carbs or less per 100 grams. That's a really good gauge. It should be less than 5 or 6% fat. So carbs, Jesus. Carbs, not fat. The fat content is fine. Don't worry about the fat content. So carbs should be lower than 6 grams per 100. Now, in this particular example here, this Greek yogurt from Aldi is 12.5 grams of fat. Okay, saturated fat is in the red, even though saturated fat is in no way harmful to human health, just the old school labeling. 3.9 grams of carbohydrate per 100. 3.9 grams, that's really low actually. 3.9, okay. And what are the ingredients? We've got natural yogurt and yogurt cultures. Nothing else. That's it. Just natural yogurt and yogurt cultures. So that's super. That's really, really good. Sorry, total carbs, sugar was 3.6. Total carbs, 4.6 per 100. So here's a really good way of figuring out, is that a lot of sugar? I mean, you know it is. Sorry, you know it's not, because I've said less than 6 grams of carbs per 100. This is 4.6. Here's a really good way of figuring out if it is. If I was to eat this whole pot in 2 days, now it's a big pot, it's like 500 grams. So you would probably eat it over 2 days. That would be 4.6 grams of carbs. There's 500 in it, so I multiply that by 5, so it's like 21, 22, something like that. Take that number of carbs and divide it by 4 to give you spoons of sugar. So I know this is roughly 21 grams of carbs in the whole tub. If I divide that by 4, that's around 5. So it's 5 spoons of sugar. So is it acceptable to be having 2.5 spoons of sugar worth of sugar in a serving of yogurt? Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. I mean, your body struggles a little bit beyond about 1 spoon of sugar. That's the number that the body can deal with perfectly, appropriately, and have no problems. Is 4 grams of carbohydrates. So you're taking in about 8 or 9 there per serving. That's absolutely fine. Now let's look at the other example, which is, this is just a really good example. I was in Aldi just before I came live here at about 10:30, and I was looking for one that looks really healthy and is just in no way healthy. So remember, if I'm going to use a silly analogy here because it's important. If someone said to you, I'm seeing this new girl, guy, whatever, and you know, I mean, he's great because he brings me out, and he pays for everything, and he's got a PhD, and he is looking to settle down, and he treats me really, really well. He gives me loads of presents. I mean, he did beat me unconscious one day. But like everything else is, you know, he's super all around. You would go, that's a problem, because that one thing that you mentioned there at the end, it supersedes everything else. So the reason I'm using that analogy is because people would say to me, oh, but it's 0% fat, which first of all is not a good thing. Oh, but it's high in protein. You go, it's just a high protein yogurt. Oh, it's got loads of calcium in it, and it is good for your gut, because it's got the gut health with the asterisk, because it's got you know, loads of different 100 million microorganisms, so lactobacillus and all that sort of stuff. It's also got 20 spoons of sugar in that. 20 spoons of sugar in that little tub. So what I'm looking for here is the number is carbohydrates, 17 grams. Multiply that by 5, you've got about 85 grams of carbs. Divide that by 4 then, and you've got 21 spoons of sugar in this. So this is just really clever labeling even. So organic, chronic healthy, so relatively local, at least for me. Gut health, okay. Kefir, which we all know is good for you. 16 strains of live cultures, also up to about here in sugar. That's literally, that tub is about a quarter full of sugar if you were to distill the sugar in it. So you'll taste it and you go, oh, it's so good for you, and it's got all of this, you know, and it tastes that nice. It's got all these things and it tastes all that nice. That is horrendously bad for you. So you can label something as being diet and skinny and healthy. It depends on what lens you're looking through. So this can be low fat, which it is. Unfortunately, it's 0% fat. It can be high in protein. It has got the gut health stuff. And because of the way the labeling works, okay, we've got one little red label where the sugars are on the high side. It's through the roof. That is horrendously bad for you. And if we look at the ingredients, the further up in the chain the ingredient is, if the ingredient is second or third, there's loads of it in there. If the ingredient is last, there's probably trace amounts of it. So milk, sugar, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, maize starch, black carrot concentrate, acidity regulator, sodium citrates, and a couple of other things as well that are not all that easy to pronounce. Whereas the other one, the ingredients, natural yogurt cultures. This is yogurt as it should be, basically. This is Brooklee, brand from Aldi, Greek yogurt, 10% fat, high in protein, and it's just yogurt as it should be. This is really, really bad for you. Okay, here are the key things to remember. You want to ignore labels that say diet, low fat, skinny, high protein, and probiotic, because broadly speaking, those things, if you've got a really high sugar yogurt, just don't mean a thing. I mean, it's great that you're getting a decent source of protein. You got some probiotics in there. Although I would argue, if you were to eat something like this, the goodness that you get from the probiotics, depending on how much of them actually reach the gut alive, which, again, arguably not a whole lot of them. If you balance that off with you've taken in 21 spoons of sugar over a couple of days, the inflammation and damage that will cause to your gut almost completely offsets. I would say net wise you're negative there in terms of the overall health effects after eating something like this, because it's so high in sugar. So probiotic, high protein, low fat, skinny diet. The first one's there, diet, low fat, and skinny. They're misleading because they're saying it's diet and low fat. So diet infers suitable for a diet for weight loss. Low fat infers you're going to lose weight because it's lower in fat. Neither of those things are correct. Skinny, same thing, just a nonsense term. So ignore those three things. You understand what actually helps you lose weight, and that's keeping your blood sugar levels lower. So sugar is the main thing to look for. Sugar and carbs as low as possible. High protein, kind of irrelevant. All yogurt is high in protein. It's kind of a nonsense term. Source of calcium, again, another nonsense box ticking term to get people to buy it. Like, what yogurt is not a good source of calcium? It's crazy. It's like having a sticker on a car saying good at transporting people. It's what it's supposed to do. Yogurt is high in protein and calcium. Probiotic, only a good thing if it's, in the absence of loads of sugar. Like, you can get natural kefir drinks which are bursting full of probiotics that have 4 or 5 grams of carbs in them. I have one downstairs that I use. But this ain't it. Okay, so carbs should be lower than 6 grams per 100. That's the main thing, actually, because it comes down to your individual preference. You might want low fat, or you might want high fat, depending on, how fat affects you. So for some people, over consuming dietary fat can slow down weight loss. But that's not to say that fat will make you fat. Fat doesn't make you fat per se. Over consuming dietary fat, like eating loads of cheese or having loads of cream in your coffee or eating lots of full fat yogurts, can slow down weight loss in some people. Now, I say that in 90% of people I work with will eat low carb, high fat, and weight will fall off them. So carbs should be lower than 6 grams per 100. If you're looking for a way of remembering how much sugar am I taking in here, you can take the total amount of carbohydrates. So I don't mean, if it says per serving, obviously multiply it out. So for example, in this, it says 4.6 grams of carbs per 100. Multiply that by 5 because this is a 500 gram tub. So I want to know how many spoons of sugar are in the whole thing. So that is 4.5 by 522 or something like that. And then divide that number by 4. So total number of carbs in the whole thing divided by 4 equals spoons of sugar in your blood. So in this example, if I was to sit down and go mad and eat the whole tub, which is like a pint, it's quite a big tub. That's a pint of Greek yogurt. I mean, you could have it over a day, but if you did 500 grams, that would be, it's about 5 spoons of sugar in your blood. And you're probably doing that in 2 sittings. So it's like 2.5 spoons of sugar. If I was to eat just this one tub, which is actually a little bit smaller, that would be 22 spoons of sugar in your blood, which is about 3 cans of Coke. Total different level there altogether. And that is going to cause weight gain. I don't care that it has probiotics in it or it's a good source of protein, good source of calcium. All that stuff is nonsense. Low on fat, zero fat, rubbish. Okay, remember, 2 key points here. Low fat does not mean low fat on your body. Low fat will probably end up in you gaining weight because of the sugar and the insulin production that comes from having that much sugar in your bloodstream. And anyway, fat doesn't make you fat. So, I mean, there's no point buying low fat stuff. You want to buy low sugar stuff. And whether you go for low sugar, low fat, or low sugar, high fat is ultimately up to you. Low carb, full fat is going to be the best for weight loss because the fat and the protein will work together to optimize hormones known as ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. That's a reductionist way of saying it, but ghrelin is ultimately the hunger hormone, leptin, which is the fullness hormone, and GLP-1 and something called PYY, which are hormones that make you feel full. So low carb, full fat is the best for weight loss, and also it's going to be the best. Low sugar, low carb is going to be the best for blood pressure, cholesterol. So that sounds odd to say. I'm going to eat more fat. I'm going to eat a low sugar, high fat yogurt for my cholesterol. Yes, because if you keep your insulin levels low, your cholesterol will balance in the right way. And by that, I mean your HDL, good cholesterol, will go up and your triglycerides will go down. Low carb, full fat is the best for weight loss and insulin resistance. So the key point to take away here, and this is what I always say as a sign off on the low fat, high fat yogurts thing, carbs less than 6 grams per 100. If you just take a note of that every time you look at yogurt and then ignore all the labeling that says diet, low fat, skinny, probiotic, high protein source of calcium, they're all BS buzzwords to try and throw you off, that they know people are looking for. So they'll ask people in market research, what do you look for? Oh, well, I look for one that's low in fat, and I look for probiotics, and I know that helps your gut, and I want a good source of protein because I'm going to the gym. Okay, all those things are important. If you're looking to lose weight and not have a lot of inflammation and not damage your gut, they better come in the context of a low sugar, low carb yogurt. Key thing, carbs below 6 grams per 100. Guys, hopefully that was helpful and will help you navigate the absolute minefield when it comes to picking up a yogurt. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you don't mind. At least you get a notification if you hit the bell notification every time we go live. Chloe will be back even next week. Have a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.